The center line is a line that you can look for on the front of the figure and also on the back of the figure. So what you'll see in a lot of these slides is I will be drawing center lines that are on the front and on the back of the figure. On the front of the figure, it's a little bit harder to find. On the back of the figure, much easier because it literally is the spine. Very clear. But on the front, you got to work a little bit harder. Here's another example from the side view. You can see the center line from the front, and you'll see that there is a natural curvature to this. And by the way, those of you guys who have been following along and caught the last stream with Christian Bale, I hope you guys have been doing your homework because there's information from the last stream that is going to really help you understand the stuff that I'm going to be talking to you about today. Okay, let's move on to the next image. So here's a really dynamic dancing scene. This is Hugh Jackman with Michelle Williams. I don't know why they're dancing amongst all these laundry sheets. It's like, okay, I guess so if that looks dynamic. But the whole concept of the center line is that if you only look at the center line essentially sums up the basic character of the gesture of the figure. So if you look at the slide, you'll see Michelle Williams is like, I don't know, apparently she's about to like fall off the building any minute. Wouldn't you guys think that you should not be dancing at the edge of a building? But okay, I guess whatever floats your boat. So if we put the center lines on top of Michelle and Hugh, do you guys see how dramatic Michelle's center line is? How it's like really pivoted up to the left? And then you see how Hugh is like standing very straight up and he really has this beautiful posture. And so what's cool about this is you can only look at the center line, not look at any other part of the body, and yet you can still have a fundamental understanding of what the gesture of the figure is. The one thing you need to know about the center line, because I have a lot of students who get confused about this, and so I always make sure I bring this up. When I mention the center line on the front of the torso, it's on the surface. The center line is not inside the torso. It's like right on the skin. And that's very important because if you think about the center line as being inside the torso, it doesn't make any sense at all. Okay, wow, looks like a lot of you guys haven't seen this movie. I'm so disappointed. How can you guys not watch like every movie that Hugh Jackman is in? Okay, let's get down to some of the bones because some of these bones are going to help us out in terms of finding where the center line is. Okay, so we have the front of the rib cage. The first bone that I want you guys to look at is this bone that's right down the middle of the rib cage, and it's called the sternum. You can see it's highlighted in green, and the sternum is a really important bone because it comes right down the middle of the rib cage. It holds all the ribs together. It's this intersection, so it's a fundamental part of the rib cage. Okay, now if we isolate the rib cage from the rest of the figure, now we can see a little bit more clearly where the center line is going to be. So here again, we've got our sternum, and I like to call the sternum the necktie bone. You know why? It looks just like a necktie. Like, look at that. Isn't that just like super convenient? It's also funny to me that it's exactly where you wear a necktie. It's like, okay, you guys have like no excuse to not remember where the sternum is because this is just making it so easy. Because here's the thing, I don't really care if my students don't know all the complicated anatomical knowledge. I just want them to be able to identify things. So even if you can't say like sternocleidomastoid, it doesn't matter as long as you understand the location of it. Okay, so that's the necktie bone. Now the thing that's really interesting about the sternum is that from the front view, it just looks perfectly straight. But the thing is, if you look at the sternum from the side view, does everybody see how it curves forward? Okay, pop quiz. Those of you who saw the Christian Bale stream, why do you guys think it matters that the sternum comes forward, that it's curved? It's not like a perfectly straight bone, actually. See if you can guess. That's my little pop quiz. Okay, so there's the sternum right there. And now here we have a comparison. So this is the sternum on the front of the rib cage. We also have the sternum on the right side, on the side view. So this is very important that you understand what the sternum looks like from multiple points of view. I think I see this a lot when people teach anatomy. They tend to think about things very much in terms of front, side, and back, which is okay from a practical point of view, but you have to conceptualize the bone as a sculptural object. Okay, let's see who did their homework. Sterling is saying because the rib cage angles forward. Ding, good job. Nice work, guys. Yes, Terrence. Oh, thank you for joining us, Danya Marie. This is your first stream. Jojo says to identify the angles. Salty Person says it's for the balance. Nothing is that straight on the human body, so it leans to balance out. Oh, you guys are so making me happy. Oh my God, this is like teacher's dream come true when people really get the stuff. Okay, so does everybody see this? This is leftover from the last stream. The rib cage tilts forward, and then look at this. Oh my God, wow. The sternum curves forward, so it follows the angle of the rib cage. Okay, let's review. So for those of you who did not get to see my stream about major masses with Christian Bell, which you should go and watch because, oh, he looks good in that video too. Anyway, if we go back to Batman, this was in the last stream, so this is just to solidify some of the information, although some of you guys are like knocking it out of the park, which is fabulous. Okay, so remember, the neck tilts forward, the rib cage tilts forward, and then the pelvis tilts back. So all of this information, you guys, it's totally interconnected. You can't isolate certain concepts from others. And that's why I'm breaking it up so much, because you have to start to see where all the content starts to connect. Okay, so let's go back to the sternum. Now we know where the necktie bone is. This is an important spot. It's not a bone, but it's this little thing called the pit of the neck. You can find it on yourself. It's just this little smudgy thing. And it's basically this little area that's in between your collarbones, okay? So again, it's the intersection. It's like where everything comes together. That is your pit of the neck. Now, if you want to sound smart, and maybe you're trying to impress somebody because you're like Jack in Titanic and you're trying to land Kate Winslet, you can say manubrium, okay? But if you want to be accessible, you can say pit of the neck. Okay, now, I know Wolverine's not in The Greatest Showman, okay? I'm well aware of this, okay? However, there are no shirtless people in The Greatest Showman. I think there is like some strong man, but he was like half covered and you couldn't see his manubrium. So I was like, okay, this is not going to work out. Let's just throw in some Wolverine. This will definitely take care of it. Okay, now let's try to find those landmarks on Wolverine. So here is the pit of the neck. And I'd recommend you guys just try to find it on yourself, because once you see it and then you can like feel it in between your collarbones, it's a lot easier to locate. Remember, it's the manubrium. Now, here is the sternum. So if we go back and forth, you guys can see on Wolverine, it's pretty pronounced, okay? But if you have somebody who's like not that muscly, you may not see it that visibly. But that's basically where it is. It's connected to the manubrium. Okay, let's see. Let's go to the next one. All right, so just to remind you, here's the sternum. I just stuck it there. But actually, this is a very funny slide. See, it looks like he's wearing like a bright fluorescent green necktie, which does not look very good on you, Wolverine. I think you look way better when you're not wearing anything. So anyway, let's see. Floor Wilmette is from Belgium. It's 4 a.m. here. This is your first live stream. Wow, I am so impressed, you guys. Thank you so much, all of you who are showing up in the middle of the night to learn artistic anatomy. Okay, so here's how you put it together. The center line on the front, you start with the pit of the neck at the top, you go downwards to the sternum, and then you keep going straight down and you stop by the belly button. See, you guys all thought the belly button was not that important. It is. If you don't put in the belly button, your center line is going to go off in some weird direction, okay? So it's pit of the neck, sternum to the belly button, and that is your center line. So that's what you guys are looking for. Oh, it's the first stream for YRT 36. Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, now here's the thing. I think a lot of people have a misconception that if you're going to learn anatomy, you can only look at naked people or people who are wearing very little, okay? Now, that is helpful and it is really great to work with a nude model if you can. But I think what's even more powerful than that is if you can spot this stuff on people that are wearing clothes, you got to be able to do both. And so this is something you guys can train your eye to do this just walking around. Well, I guess right now we're not really doing that, but maybe the people who you live with, maybe they could be your references. Okay, so here's Hugh, and he's bending back. Okay, so look at this. There's his pit of the neck. It's underneath that fancy cravat, whatever it is he's wearing. There's his center line. Now, do you guys see how if you only look at the center line, you already understand that he's bent back? Like if his center line was perfectly straight, you would understand that he was standing up straight, but he's not. He's bent back like that. When will it be? Wow, 3 a.m. in Portugal. All of Europe is staying up late just to learn anatomy. Wow, you guys are big art nerds. I love it. Awesome. Okay, let's go from the center line, and we're going to go back, do a little bit of review with Christian Bale, which is fine. I'm okay with that. I can have Hugh and Christian in the same stream. Do you guys see how dramatically his head is tilted back? The head doesn't actually naturally sit that way. So if we go back to Christian, oh, he looks really good. This looks like a really bad movie. It's a movie called Knight of Cups by Terrence Malick. It looked totally horrible, but he looks really good in this movie. So anyway, the head sits upright just like this. And for those of you who remember, you look for the orientation of the ear to see how the head sits upright. You look at the tilt of the neck moving forward. And now let's go back and you can recognize those two things. Because here's the thing, it's not useful, guys, if you can identify stuff on an anatomical chart. That is a good start, but you have to be able to see this stuff past the top hat and the cravat and the silly red outfit and everything. That is a sign of somebody who really knows their anatomy. If you need everything spelled out for you, that's not a good thing, because at some point, you're going to want to draw a picture of somebody with clothes on. I guarantee to you, at some point, that is going to be necessary. Okay, wow, 5:16 a.m. in Saudi Arabia. Oh, yikes, I can't get up before 6. That's just like way too difficult. Okay, now, does everybody see this? So you have head tilted back, neck tilts forward, and then the rib cage tilts forward because you can also see the center line curving forward as well. Okay, now let's go back to Dr. Paul Richet, Artistic Anatomy, which, by the way, if you guys are looking for a good, simple, straightforward anatomy book, this is one I recommend. It's great. It's not expensive. It's paperback. I don't buy it to read it. I buy it to look at the charts because I find the charts just, bare bones. They're just really easy. Some of the other anatomy books, the pictures are too complicated. You can't really see past it. Okay, so here we have back, side, and front view of the spine. We're going to talk about the central line on the back of the figure now. Okay, now, does everybody see how on the left-hand side, the back view of the spine, you totally can easily make the assumption that it looks straight. And yeah, it totally looks straight, right? And if you are standing right behind Hugh and he's not wearing a shirt, this is what you will see. Okay, gotta focus now. Okay. Okay, now from the side of the figure, whoa, it's a totally different story. Does everybody see how curvaceous that is? I mean, it's like a snake. It's so different. And that's where things go wrong for people, that they make the assumption that, oh, it's straight, but then they don't realize that from the side view, all those angles that the neck and the rib cage and the pelvis are making, that's what makes the spine really behave that way. Okay, so it looks curved. Now you can see if we actually take the spine and we put it in the context of the rest of the body, it's a little bit hard to see because you have the rib cage that surrounds the spine, the pelvis gets a little bit in the way, your shoulder blades get in the way. So it's a little hard to see, but I highlighted it in green so you guys can start to understand the context of that. And you'll see also, same thing on the back view, that if you're standing straight on like that, it's going to look straight, okay? And that's what happens all the time, is people draw it straight, and that's when you get in trouble. It's so rarely like that. Most of the time, there is at least some degree of curvature. Okay, let's go back to Hugh and Michelle Williams. Again, dancing amongst laundry sheets. Like, what interior designer decided that that was going to be romantic? Okay, whatever. I'll take it. I mean, he's such a good dancer. Oh my God, I love his legs. He looks so good in this movie. Shame on you guys who did not see this movie, because he's so good in it. Let's see. Rebecca says, wish my spine looked like that. Studying my own body makes it unique because you grew up with scoliosis. Oh, wow. Yeah, I know somebody, a friend of mine has scoliosis, and actually their shoulders to this day, even after having surgery, are crooked. Like, one shoulder is noticeably higher than the other. Okay, so we have Hugh and we have Michelle. And, you know, you look at this picture and you think, oh, they're standing up straight, right? Yeah, they are. But check this out. If you look at their center lines, does everybody see the curvature in there? And it's because we're looking at a profile view. So this is similar to what we talked about with Christian Bale, that even though Bruce Wayne is standing up in an awesome tailored suit, he still looks quite curved. And that's what you guys really need to look for. Ripple of Aqua is saying, do you have any tips how to draw people with misaligned spines or really bad posture? That's a great question. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with relating different parts to each other. So, for example, if you are drawing somebody and their shoulders are not even, you can say, okay, which shoulder is higher? That's oftentimes the very first thing you need to talk about. And that might seem obvious, but it actually is not. A lot of the times when I'm working with students doing figure drawings in drawing class, a lot of them will actually even it out. Like, I'll say to them, hey, look at those shoulders again. One is like way higher than the other. And they're like, whoa, why did I even that out? And so I think a lot of us, we think we're showing the difference between the two shoulders enough, but we're not. We're actually underestimating it. So it goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is that when you guys see those angles in the figure, you got to exaggerate them, because if you draw them to be accurate, they're always going to come out understated. So if I'm trying to draw somebody who has a very severe shift of posture, I always do it more, like to the point that it makes me uncomfortable. But I think it's very, very important. In fact, I saw a woman when I was in Taiwan, and I am not exaggerating. She looked like she was bending over to pick a penny off the sidewalk, except that was her real posture. Like, that's how she was walking down the street. So I'm glad you brought that up, because not everybody has this kind of posture. Heba is saying, I feel like the shoulders influence the center lines a lot. Sometimes easier for me to start with the shoulders to get the gesture right. The shoulders are very important. But the thing about the center line is that the center line goes through the whole body. So it just cuts right down the middle. The thing about the shoulders is it only goes across. And so you're missing the whole bottom of the torso, which is the rib cage. Center line goes through the whole thing. So you're trying to establish early on the stuff that is right in the middle, like the center part of the figure. Okay, let's take a look at this. Now, on the back, it's very straightforward. You just say, okay, center line is the spine, okay? It's harder when they are wearing clothes, but it is something that I think conceptually for a lot of people, it's a little bit easier to wrap their head around. Okay, does everybody see this? Now I've taken away Hugh and Michelle, and we are only looking at the center lines. Now, you could look at this and say, okay, Clara, those look like gummy worms. Great, nice job. Or you could look at this and say, wow, I have a fundamental understanding of what Hugh and Michelle were doing. I know that they were standing up. I know that they were facing each other. I mean, isn't that like mind-blowing that two little lime-flavored gummy worms could express that much information about the human anatomy? That's amazing, okay? So that is why the center line is so, so important. Paola is saying determining posture might make you think the center line is skewed, when it's the center line that is affecting where the shoulders are. Yep, because the thing about your bones is your bones don't like move up and down. Like if you have shoulder blades, they move in relation to each other. So if one goes up, the other one goes down. It's all a series of reactions. Sterling Richards wants candy now. Yep. Well, it's all about food and hot white men. Okay. Yes, I know he was not in The Greatest Showman, but again, there just weren't any pictures of his visible spine in The Greatest Showman. So thank goodness we have this still of Wolverine jumping out of this scene where he's having adamantium put into his body by Sergeant Stryker. But I was like, wow, this is really good because this is a very dramatic scene. He's bending over. You can see his spine really, really visibly, okay? So this is all in the name of art education, okay? Right? This is all what it's about. Okay, so here we have his center line. And if you guys look at it, you see how it's horizontal? Now, if we went back, we looked at Michelle and Hugh, their center lines were not doing that. Their center lines were very upright. This one's like really cutting across the page. Okay, now you have to look at the spine. You got to remind yourself it's not straight. You think it is because it looks straight if you're going straight on, but remember, it is not. Okay, let's go to the full cast of The Greatest Showman because there's a lot of dancing in this movie. If you guys are really into musicals, this is totally the movie for you. I mean, the music is really sappy, but it's fine. I mean, he's such a good dancer. I just love him. He's so graceful. Okay, so does everybody see how all the figures in this scene, they're all doing the exact same thing, okay? They're perfectly in sync and they're all standing upright, okay? So nothing is different about any of their poses. Now, if I go in with my lime-flavored gummy worms, does everybody see how all the center lines are exactly the same? Like they're all parallel to each other because all the figures are doing the exact same thing. Okay, now look at this. If I take away all those figures and we only look at the center lines, we're not looking at anything else, okay? I could ask you guys, hey, what is this group of people doing fundamentally with their figures? And you could say to me, oh, this is a group of people and they're all standing upright. That's incredible. That is so much information just packed into a single line. And this is why the center line is so fundamental. However, you don't have a center line if you don't have major masses, which is why you got to go back and watch that Christian Bale video. All right, let's go to another scene. Now, you can see their dance is starting to get a little bit more worked up. The dancers are starting to do poses that are much, much more dramatic. And so if we go in, this time we have cherry-flavored gummy worms, okay? So the cherry-flavored gummy worms, they're starting to bend a little bit. They're starting to twist a little bit more. They're not hyper dramatic yet, but they're definitely not like this one, which is where they're just standing upright, okay? So if we go here, well, here, let me go back to this image. Okay, so here is the cast of figures. They're starting to bend. And now look at this, okay? Even here, you have an understanding of how these dancers relate to each other. Like you look at the two gummy worms on the left-hand side, okay? You can see how one is tilted this way and the other one is bending upwards, okay? One line packed with information. It's really incredible. Okay, I was very proud of this scene, okay? Because, wow, they're starting to do some crazy stuff in this. This is like, one of those scenes where you're just like, oh my God, the human body can do that? Like, how did they ever figure that out? Okay, so now they're starting to do these crazy poses. And the part I was very proud of in terms of finding the still, because it takes a while to find the right still, is the two people that are hanging from the ceiling. Do you guys see those people? They're like all knotted up. And I think they're both upside down. So their center lines are doing something really wacky. Okay, it looks more like a croissant or something like that. Okay, so let's put some lime-flavored gummy worms on top of these people. Do you guys see the center lines at the top? Those two hanging dancers? Like, that's insane. Like, how can you get your center line to do something like that? Like, the ones at the bottom are a little bit more realistic, but the two people at the top is like, oh my God. And then also, do you guys see the two figures towards the bottom on the left and the right of Hugh, who's in the middle? They're right across. I mean, those two figures, they're doing like crab walks there. So you can see that very visibly. Seren is saying, so the centerline is either on the chest surface or the back. Correct. So if you were on the front of the figure, it's on the surface of the skin. And on the back, it's literally just the spine. I think for a lot of people, the back center line is much more visible. The one on the front, you really do have to find the sternum. You got to find your pit of the neck. The belly button's pretty easy to find, but you have to do connect the dots on the front. If you don't do connect the dots, you'll have trouble trying to see where everything is. Okay, now let's take away all the dancers. Look at that. That is crazy. Okay, you can tell definitely from this slide that these people are doing major acrobatics, okay? So we're distilling all this information. Okay, anybody remember the scene? Oh, this is like the most cringy scene. It's got like Zendaya dancing and doing like hoop stuff with Zac Efron. I mean, the only reason they put them in this movie is because Hugh and Michelle were like a little too old for the young people to have somebody to be lusting after. So, you know, this movie has hot white guy for every age. Although I don't think Zach is that great. He's sort of boring. He's fine. He's just a little generic. He's just not Hugh. So whatever. Okay. So now here is the scene where they're like flipping around. And if you guys look at it, Zach is in a very different pose. He's like bent backwards. He is less flexible than her. She's like a little rubber band or something. Okay. And so you can see her center line, her spine is like very visible. Like you can really see that like S curve that you see from the side, but we're looking at Zach from the front. And so he tends to look a little bit more straight. Okay, let's see. Now, if you look at Zendaya, you guys see her rib cage tilting forward, pelvis tilts back. It follows the center line. It all lines up. It's like magic. It's just the coolest thing. It's like a perfect little math problem where everything just like wraps up in a nice little neat bow. Sterling is saying, why is his center line past the belly button? Well, because in theory, it just keeps going and it does go past the symphysis pubis, which is the pubic bone. Okay. And then you have the genitalia. Okay. So technically speaking, it does keep going, but really once you get to the belly button, there's not a lot of space left. So I just go to the belly button and that's pretty much it. But yeah, it does literally just go right through the symphysis pubis, which we will get to later. So I will explain that in greater detail. Salty Person says the edit where they removed the background music showed what the characters would have heard, makes it much less cringy. I don't know. I just feel like they have no chemistry. Like they just look so choreographed. Like it oh my God, like I just can't stand it. Like if you look at Hugh, he's just so like, oh, everything's just so easy for him. And he's so cute in this movie. Okay, so again, we're coming back to Hugh and Michelle. And this is very, very dramatic again. So if you look at their center lines, he is tilted back. She's like arched backwards very dramatically. And now if you look at their rib cages, the rib cages become even more visible now because the poses are just that much more dramatic. And then here you can also see that the pelvises are tilted back. So let's take away the center lines just for a minute. So that way you guys can see the angle of the rib cage and the angle of the pelvis. Saren is asking, are males normally straighter in alignment, less curve in spine angles than females? I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot of really generalized ideas about, oh, in general, male figures tend to have this and female figures tend to have this. But I don't know that I like those types of statements, especially because gender is a completely different thing today than it was, say, when I was growing up. And so I feel like it's really out of date to say, oh, all women have smaller rib cages than men. All men have bigger pelvises or whatever. I don't know. It just sort of bothers me because I think that just everybody's unique. And so I tend not to think about like, oh, men in general have this. Neil is saying, nope, Efron is just not a good dancer. Exactly. Like you can totally see it when he dances. Like he does not have that like fluidity and grace that Hugh has, because and also his voice is not as good. He's just like a really younger, not as cute, not as good dancer, and boring version of Hugh Jackman. There we go. Okay, so here's where we're going to actually start to bring it back to drawing. We are actually going to get there. I know a lot of these first videos, there's like a lot of setup. There's a lot of fundamental basics you have to understand first. But in this video, I am going to bring it back to drawing just very briefly. Wilson Nathan is saying, so do center lines from the front and back match up at all? It seems like they would. I assume it's not that easy. I would assume that they do, because your sternum, which is the necktie bone on the front, I'm pretty sure it does align with your spine. Like, I can't imagine that your sternum would be like 3 inches to the left of your spine. It seems like you'd have a very crooked rib cage. But from a scientific point of view, I don't know for sure. But I'm going to say if you eyeball it, I would guess that's the case. Saren's saying, yep, case by case in different humans. Yep, I just feel like it's too hard to generalize about the human figure. Ripple of Aqua says, to be fair to Zac Efron, he's never worked on Broadway like Hugh. Yeah, but I don't know, he's so boring. Plus his body's not remotely as good. He's too like chunky. I don't know. Hugh is way better. So anyway. All right. So the center line, the whole concept behind it, if you want to bring it back into drawing, it should be one of the first things that you draw. And don't worry, I will have a video where I really do walk you guys step by step the order that I recommend drawing things in, because I know everybody has a different preference. Like some people will say, oh, I always start with the head. Or for me, the torso is better. I have really specific reasons why I draw things in the order that I draw them in. So I will definitely be explaining that later, but we still have to understand this. I guess Rebecca's enjoying my roast. Well, you know something? If you just put another white guy next to Hugh Jackman, they're all going to suck. Unless it's Michael Fassbender or Christian Bale, then it's fine, you know? As long as it's not like large Christian Bale, like Dick Cheney, Christian Bale, not into him. Okay, now here's a student gesture drawing. And I think you guys can see from the back view that the center line, pretty easy to find. And you can see, because this is a figure that is bending forward, sort of arched a little bit, you can see that curvature of that center line. Okay. Now, on another back view, this is, again, somebody who's standing up straight. And so you would think, for a lot of people, they would say, oh, the spine is straight, but it is not. If you go in and you look at it, you can see that curvature. Salty Person is asking, what's a plumb line? A plumb line is basically like a piece of string that you hold vertically, and it usually has like a little weight down at the bottom. So that way, when you hold it up like this, it is a perfectly straight vertical line. And I know a lot of people use it in drawing to measure out the locations of different body parts. I have never used a plumb line before. I rely entirely on observation. I mean, if it helps you, go ahead and do it. I just hate measuring, like, for myself. I'm not saying measuring is a bad thing. I'm just saying I don't like to measure things, like, ever. I feel like I have an allergic reaction to rulers, and so I just don't really like using plumb lines in general. Okay, so here's a front figure. And do you guys see how this figure is sort of leaning to the left? And so therefore, if you look at her center line, it's not perfectly straight. It's tilted a little bit to the left. GTM is saying, would the center line start at the top of the neck like the spine? Well, the thing is, the center line is separate from the neck. Like, the neck has its own full out anatomy. I mean, yeah, the spine goes through the neck, like it's actually in there. But the thing is, once you get into the neck, the spine is like inside the neck. Like, your spine is not like on the surface of your neck. Like, that would be weird if you could like feel vertebrae like underneath your neck on the front. And so that's where it gets a little confusing, because then on the neck, there's all these other muscles like sternocleidomastoid, your trapezius starts coming up the back of the neck. And so the neck is just so much more complicated that I don't find it helpful to think about the center line as going into the neck, because I think it just gets a little bit too confusing. There's too much that gets covered by muscle up there to make it visible. Whereas, like, if you guys touch the back of your back and you can feel your spine, like you can feel the indentation, Like, actually, this is a good thing. If you guys do this, if you touch your chin to your pit of the neck, so if you do this, okay, and then you take your finger and you touch the back of your neck, you're going to feel one vertebrae that's like sticking out a little bit. That is called your seventh cervical vertebrae because it's a seventh vertebrae down from the top. And that's how you can feel, oh, yeah, my spine is right there. It's right underneath the surface of the skin. Here, it's not really. I mean, I suppose if you like really pressed hard, maybe you could get into your spine. But here, there's just a lot of other stuff. All right, guys, I hope you will take some time and check out artprof.org. Lots of goodies there for you. If you have not joined us on Discord, I highly recommend it because there are some pretty cool people hanging out in that Discord, and I would love for all the cool people here to go hang out with those cool people over there. So go down to the video description below. You guys will find the invite link on our Discord server. And I would love to see you guys over there so we can chat about dorky things after streams. Please subscribe to our channel so you can join the Art Prof family. And thank you so much to our top Patreon supporters who keep the lights on. Thank you to all of you guys for all of your awesome comments, for keeping me thirsty with Hugh Jackman. Don't worry, that's never going to be a problem. Thank you guys so much. Everybody, stay safe. I will see you next time. Bye.